Good afternoon. You're listening to a special edition of the BLAINESWORLD show, heard here on WPVM LP 103.7. This show, however, is not on radio, it's just on Facebook Live. And I'd like our two guests to wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. Victoria and Tom.
Hello.
Tom's waving. Can I get a wave, Victoria? There she is. And I'm very excited. Okay, I'm very excited to be speaking to both Tom Godleski and Victoria Lamberth, in that they're going to be talking about an upcoming show that's going to be at the Magnetic Theater. And I think you're really going to want to see this one. Before we talk about the show, though, Tom, what I'd like to do is find out a little bit about my guests. And since this is the first time you and I have met online, let me just ask you, in terms of your music background, when did you first get into music?
I got kind of a late start in life compared to my fellow musicians. I started when I always sang, but I didn't start playing an instrument until I was 29.
Oh, that is unusual. A lot of guys will say they started when they're 5 years old.
Yeah, most of the guys around here, one of my friends was playing when he was 4.
Yeah.
So I got a late start, but I'm trying to make up for the late start.
Okay. What got you into it at the age of 29?
Well, I've always sang, and I sang in school talent shows and stuff like that. But I had a neighbor who was 45 and passed away, and I was just thought, that you're so young and vibrant, he had cancer, and I just thought, well, I could start asserting myself a little bit now, and it was kind of a moment when I went to her wake, and there was a guy down at the neighbors, there was a guy playing guitar, and Wayne Cherry was his name. He was singing all these songs, and then I said, hey, you know this song? And he said, just start singing and I'll play it. And I sang in front of a bunch of strangers, and it kind of, that kind of got me going. And then I went to a jam session, and my friends were there, a couple guys I went to high school with, and they heard me singing at this jam session, and one of them was like, hey man, we need a bass player. And he let me borrow a bass and kind of gave me lessons for free and let me borrow his bass. And then, so that was, that's been 30-something years ago.
So what was the first gig you ever performed?
I'm sorry?
What was the first time you ever performed before an audience?
Oh, wow. That's kind of funny. I guess I guess you could call it a real gig, but the first gigs that I did was actually at the Irwin Lions Club over here near Irwin High School. And it was like a fundraiser for the Lions Club. It was, you go in, there would be several bands there. You'd go in and sign up and get a slot, and they sold concessions and stuff to make money for the Lions Club. That's probably my first gig, but it wasn't a paying gig. My first paying gig was actually when I was in I played bluegrass for a few years, and then I went into a country rock blues band. And the first paying gig I ever did was, oh gosh, I want to say, 1990 or something. And we went to Newport, Tennessee, and we played at Douglas Lake on the 4th of July. We made $50 a piece.
Now I'm looking, Tom, though. I don't see a framed picture of that check or the cash. You didn't save your first $10 or something?
No, I didn't save that. I spent it probably before I even got home.
Okay. So then what's really cool about your background, so it sounds like you were mostly a self-taught musician?
Yes, and the thing about it, if you're around here, if you're musically inclined and you inquire or you go to jam sessions, there you will get plenty of help. I mean, that's the way the jam sessions and stuff, people will take you under their wing, so to speak. And one of the early men that helped me was a man named Robert Blankenship. His motto, and he had a little badge on the hat that said, "Tune it or die." And his thing was stay in tune and stay in time. And Robert didn't have to give me time of day. He was a mandolin player, and he was a really good mandolin player. And I've got a cassette tape somewhere here at the house of he and I and my high school friends jamming out on our front porch. And I recorded it with a little handheld recorder, and you can hear the crickets in the background. Yep. And so if you're musically inclined and you want to learn to play bluegrass music, you're in the place to do it, and you will get plenty of coaching and help.
How many instruments do you now play?
I don't play. I play upright bass, and I'm not a really good guitar player. I'm good enough guitar player to write songs, with no chords. And I play harmonica some. I like, every now and again I like to play like a blues harmonica. and I'm not real good at that either. My strongest instrument, which is not real strong, is the upright bass.
Okay, and of course you also sing and you write, as well. We'll talk about
the band.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Victoria, I'll ask you the same question again too. I know you've been performing for a little bit. You started a little bit earlier than Tom, would you say?
Yeah, I actually did my first play when I was 12. So that was my first acting performance.
What you were performing in it? What was the play?
Oh gosh, I think we've talked about this before. It was called The Roaring Twenties, and it was a middle school production, middle school play.
Okay, and I told you the reason I asked that question because I want you to work it out with, at Magnetic Theater. And I want to do that as a fundraiser. I told you, and you and Tate, and everybody does their
Everybody's first show,
their first role.
It would be fun, yeah.
Exactly. You don't have to do the whole thing, just 5 minutes of it. But wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
The kids could see it.
It would be fun.
Just recreate it. So you actually started performing when you were 12, just kind of the Reader's Digest version. How'd you get from performing at the age of 12 to now directing?
I didn't start directing until I was in my 30s, just by doing theater over time. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and I got involved with my oldest daughter who was in kindergarten. Her school had they did a school play every year and did classes, and I started helping out with those, and then eventually I was teaching them, and that was really kind of my foray into directing, was by doing children's theater.
Now, do you prefer performing or directing?
I like directing, honestly.
Because you're such a marvelous performer. I've seen you as a performer, and I think the very first thing I think I saw you direct, it surprised me. It was at was it Hendersonville Community Theater? Didn't you direct something there? And what was that?
I did Love Lost in What I Wore in 2017, I believe.
And was that the first thing you directed in this area?
That was the first thing I directed in this area. We moved from Nashville. I did quite a bit in Nashville, Tennessee before coming here. And then we moved in 2011. And for about 5 years, I had a job where I did a lot of traveling. So I wasn't doing any theater. And then in 2016, after I had left that job, I was able to get back into doing theater and directing things.
And just as a compliment to you, and you've heard me say this before, but that show, I saw at Hendersonville, just kind of knocked my socks off, because you took a very static play. Typically, I had seen it once or twice before as a reader's theater, and boy, did you make it come alive. Was that your idea on that?
Yeah, it was kind of a joint discussion among myself and the artistic director and the executive producer at the time of wanting to do something more than just the traditional reader's theater with it. And they sort of gave me permission to run with it, and made sure we had the rights to do it the way we did so we could stage it. And then it just sort of grew from there. Once we started putting it and staging it as an actual play, it just kind of lent itself to all kinds of opportunities.
And what's exciting, Victoria, is that kind of segues into the show that's coming now at the Magnetic Theater, because I'll go back to Tom, is that I guess Victoria found this, or the Magnetic Theater found it, or Tom found it, but you had this play then, Tom, and talk a little bit about the one that's coming up then, and we'll talk about some of the other stuff. But the play that's going to now be at the Magnetic Theater, what's the name of it?
It's called The Sparrow and the Whippoorwill.
Okay, now you had written that, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, now talk a little bit about that and some of the other stuff you've done, because I'd seen some of your other stuff, always enjoyed it, but I don't know, I'd call them a play with music. Is that how you might describe it?
No, this is a musical now.
No, this one, but the other stuff you did was typically...
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the other ones are somewhat, there's a couple that are somewhat musicals, but most of them, there's 4 other plays. Most of them are plays with music.
So how did you get the idea to make this then a full-blown musical?
Victoria Lamberth.
Okay. Well, no, that's really cool. So, like I said, I saw at least two or three other stuff. They were very good. But what makes this different, Tom?
Well, it has different. It has it has a lot of dancing and singing in it. But I took the show. I sent the show to Katie Jones at Magnetic, and actually that was on a suggestion from an actor here in Nashville named Murphy Funkhauser Caps. He said you should send the show to Magnetic. I sent it to Katie, And then I spoke with Katie on the phone a week or so later. I was like a little kid waiting on my decoder ring, to come in the mail. I couldn't wait to talk to her. So I didn't want to bother her, but I broke down and called her. And she laughed, she kind of laughed. She said, I was getting ready to call you. She said, we're going to do your show. And I was elated. I was so happy. I was like, wow, I'm so blessed. So she said, we need to have a meeting. So I go to the theater and I meet with her, Katie Jones, and Victoria. The first time I met Victoria. Go in, we sit down, and they say, we love the show. We're going to do the show, but it's not ready. And I'm like, what? No, I didn't say that. But I'm like, so at that point, you have to have sense enough to know what's best for the show. And they said, it's not ready. And I'm like, okay. I thought it was okay when I sent it. Now I'm kind of embarrassed because from what it was and what it is now is night and day. It's 100 times better than it was. And the first thing they said to me was, one of the things they said was, we want some of the characters to sing. And I was kind of embarrassed about that. Like I never had written a play where characters sang songs. And so then I'm like, well, I was thinking they have to do original music. So I didn't want to be rude at the meeting, but I had an idea for one of the actresses, Gladys, which is played by Karen Covington Yao. And I started writing lyrics down, which hardly ever works for me. I hardly ever have a song come that quick. But I started writing these lyrics down, and I was trying not to be rude, but I had to write them down before I forgot. And I had that song halfway written before I got home. And then another great thing that they told me at that meeting was, we want to see the antagonist more. I only had the antagonist in one scene. And so I'm like, wow. And it inspired me, and it made me go home and work on the thing. And I can't be more thankful, and I just love what the Magnetic Theater stands for, because Katie Jones could have read that story and said, I like this, but it's not ready. Come back next year, or come back when you've got it completed. And she could have done that easily, but they helped me. They worked, they would give me suggestions, not necessarily on what to write, but what to do. As far as, like I said, bringing the antagonist in, and the antagonist is played by Loxley Blanchard, and he
okay, great
antagonist to the core. He's so good. So,
well, Victoria, let me ask you, because that's an incredible story, Tom. Mm-hmm. How long did that process take then? From you had the first meeting with the mm-hmm. Magnetic, to where it became now a full-blown play. How long did that take?
Well, interestingly, I think we met originally with Tom in September of 2019 about this initial meeting. And then we started doing development on it at the beginning of 2020, in January of 2020. We got through, or maybe a month or two before that, we got through just as the pandemic was starting. And with the idea that this would be a show that would have been done in summer of 2020. The COVID sort of ruined that schedule for us, but we were ready to go a year ago with this. So we, worked on it maybe 6 months before everything got shut down and we could no longer proceed with producing the show.
And as a compliment to you, Victoria, also to the Magnetic mm-hmm. Theater, is I know that's one of the things that the Magnetic Theater prides itself on in terms of taking works and bringing it to production. Mm-hmm. Is that the first time you've ever done something like this with a musical?
With a musical, definitely. I did I worked on another show just recently, Grimm's Fairy Tales at Montford Park Players. And that was a play with music, so to speak. So it had some elements of that. But we didn't do any original songs. This is the first time I've done a show where we've taken original work in the songwriting as well.
Do you have a preference, even on that end, of taking something that's already established and you just direct the heck out of it, or taking it from scratch like this and making it evolve?
I don't really know if I have a preference. I will say this show has been an amazing experience from the very beginning. Working with Tom has been wonderful. The cast has been wonderful. Of course, the Magnetic Theater is wonderful. So it's just been a really positive experience. And in a way of, I can't really compare it to anything else that I've ever done, even doing published musicals. This has just been a very different experience, and it's been really wonderful.
And what's so cool about you, Victoria, is every time I see you, you like doing something different, you know. I
I
mean,
do.
no, I saw you back when with the Hendersonville Community Theater, and you were helping with the marketing of that, and you were doing a magnificent job. And I saw you acting and directing, and just kind of cool to see you, you know, in different stages. And Tom, the same thing too. That you know, I saw you years ago at SAWT, you know, and so you do a couple of things at SAWT, did a great job with it. But now you're putting on this full-blown musical. Let me ask you, in terms of full-blown musical, you put together the band, I guess. And the band on this one, Tom, includes who? The band, yeah.
Okay, we have Brooks Butler on guitar, and he's a teacher at he's the music teacher at Claxton Elementary School, where I'm a teacher assistant there. And so Brooks is our music teacher, and then Mark Moser is a teacher at Black Mountain Academy, and he is playing mandolin. So there's only three of us right now. We had hoped to find a fourth, but it's hard because everyone has to be vaccinated, and then people who play, they're all doing gigs. So, but the band is myself, Brooks Butler, and Mark Moser, and I'll just say when I was elated when they both said they were available and they could do every show. Now, they're not members of Buncombe Turnpike, but you know, my band members, they wanted to do it, but one guy says, I can't do any Sundays. And then one guy's like, I can do every show, but this show.
Right.
And I wanted to have a consistent group.
Sure.
That, you know, one guy might have to come in for one night and learn all the music for one night. And so I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be consistent. So I got a hold of Brooks and Mark. And when I went to the first rehearsal with them, which was on a Sunday evening at Brooks's house, I walked in, they had music stands with the chord progressions charted out. And I was like, I knew right then and there we were going to be good. We were going to, you know, the music was going to be okay because they had done their homework before the first rehearsal. And it really gave me a good sense of security as far as, you know, music wise.
Now, on this show, Tom, where are the musicians going to be placed?
I'm sorry?
Where are the musicians going to be sitting or standing, or where will they be performing?
Oh, boy, we're all over the place. It's good. It you know, it breaks the show up. It's not like, you know, in the other shows, and a couple of the other shows, the band stays in one place. You know, in Snowbound, we stayed in one place for the first act, and second act we went one place. But in this show, we exit stage right, we exit stage left, we come in down the aisle, and then there's a platform to the on stage right that we stand on and do a couple songs, and it breaks up the monotony of just standing stationary in one place, or even two or three places. We're moving around constantly.
Because the challenge, I would imagine, Tom and Victoria would know it better, is with the Magnetic Theater, and that's not a real big, you know, staging area, you know. So you really have to, I guess, be prepared to move around. When musicians, are you singing at all? Also, when you're doing the playing, do you sing in the show?
Band? Yes.
Yeah, the band.
And that's another thing that I just love. I gave Katie and Victoria, or I gave Katie I gave them a stack of Buncombe Turnpike CDs, and they went through and listened to the songs, and they put some songs, you know, like in the interludes, in the breaks, in the scene breaks, in the transitions. What I'm trying to say, we put in songs that really don't have anything to do with the play. They're just Buncombe Turnpike songs, and they're story songs. So the audience is going to get a little bit of a story song that has nothing to do with the show, but it's during, you know, when furniture's being moved and the lights, you know, and so I was very appreciative of that. That'll, you know, because that'll let people hear other Buncombe Turnpike songs that they may not have heard. But yeah, the band does. We do I think we do at least 3 songs on our own, and then the rest of the characters sing.
And it's funny you say that, Tom, because that's one of the things that Magnetic Theater does tend to do, and they tend to have very interesting plays, but I don't know if you've seen it, Victoria, that in between the interludes, they always have music, which is really kind of, it catches your attention. And so I ask you the same thing too, Victoria. I mean, I can't believe you have now this 3 musicians, and you have a cast of how many?
I have a cast of 9.
9. Wow, that's, so you got them moving in that, the stage. And of course, kidding around here, the nice thing about having it at the Magnetic Theater, for them, if they're on stage, they have this beautiful backstage area, for them to all hang out in,
Uh-huh.
nine and three musicians, a lot of people. Talk a little bit about your cast.
My cast, I cannot say enough about my cast. They are absolutely wonderful. Lauren Otis and Daniel Sandoval are playing the leads in the show.
Oh, great.
And then we have Karen Covington Yao and Mike Yao, her husband. They're actually not playing husband and wife in the show, but they're Karen's playing a nurse that works. The show takes place in a nursing home in Nashville. So Karen is one of the nurses in the nursing home. Mike is actually playing several characters in the show. On top of that, we have Brandy Adrani, which I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She is new here. She just moved here from Austin, Texas this year.
Oh, I know, very talented. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she is also playing several characters. Stephanie Nussbaum is in the show, playing several characters. Who am I leaving out? Carl Kern, who is playing Meryl, another nursing home employee. And then my stage manager, Dakota Mann, got his arm twisted. Oh, and I meant Loxley Blanchard, who we already mentioned, is playing the bad guy. Got his arm twisted to also play some characters in the show. So he's kind of pulling double duty in the show.
Okay, I always like seeing Dakota, but that's really quite a cast you have.
Mm-hmm.
And to have 12 people moving around, that's probably a logistical situation. I know
it is. It's an interesting space, but once you sort of get a handle on, well, this works and this doesn't work, it gives it there are limited possibilities, but it actually makes it kind of fun to see how creative you can get with what little you have space wise.
And you also have, if you can give a shout out to your choreographer, who's a very talented individual.
Oh yes, Jessica Garland Lowe, who also does a lot of things for ACT and Heart, choreographed the show, and I cannot say that the choreography is just enjoyable to watch. It really is. She always does a beautiful job.
And Tom, if I can go back to you for the benefit of people who are watching this, can you give kind of like a Reader's Digest version, a short version of what the show is about?
It's basically about an elderly man who was a war hero, World War II hero, and a retired fireman in Asheville. And he has, he don't know what a bucket list is, but he has a bucket list.
I love it.
And his mind is good, his body's worn out, and he has things he wants to get done before he passes on. And he says, my days are numbered, so, kind of, and he recruits this rebel nurse to help him accomplish what he wants to get accomplished. And, when I was writing it, I was trying to think of ways to compel her to do it, and I hope it comes across as that, she, at one point, she got in trouble a little bit in high school, and her mother tells her now, I'm glad you're not pushing the limits. I'm glad you're grown up now and you don't. And I think I want that kind of thing to inspire her to say, well, wait a minute, I still can bend the rules a little bit. What she does for him is it could get her fired from her job, and I won't tell you what. And then one thing she does for him, she could get criminally charged, but I would say morally it's not wrong, but with the legal system, they would probably be frowned upon. She doesn't have she doesn't have a permit to do what she's going to do for this man. But it's the show has just gone from one point to this point, which I couldn't. And then, and for me, and I'm sure for Victoria as well, Victoria has come up with most of the ideas. You can look at it on paper, but then when you start getting actors on stage and they're reading the script, and then Victoria says, oh, by the way, do this. Oh, by the way, give him this look. And I love standing there watching those things just come like serendipity. There's one little scene where one of the characters takes her foot and pushes a guy on the floor, and he rolls. And it's so funny. Gladys, with Karen Covington Yao, she pushes Dakota with her foot, and he rolls. And as he rolls, Brooks, our guitar player, goes on the guitar string. And so I just love little things like this. But I also do want to mention real quick though, this will be my first time ever playing a rap song.
Oh, but you wrote it also though?
No. My son, whose name is Brian Colson, Godleski, he's a rapper here in Asheville. It's kind of wild. I play bluegrass, and my son's a rapper. I don't know what happened there, but know, his music he's very good at what he does. And so I sent him the script, and he read Roger, who's played by Loxley Blanchard. He read the part, and then he wrote this rap for me. And I got to admit, I was having a little bit of a hard time getting a bass beat, but I was trying to overthink it. And so now I think I got a good bass beat going on it. And then what's cool is I don't know, Victoria, did you write this? There were words written for the reprise that matched the show.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And did you?
No, I think your son wrote those.
Okay.
It was part of his original. He wrote it kind of in two pieces. Yeah.
Right, because that's right. Because I sent him the script, but anyway, it'll be our first attempt at rap.
Well, I want to give you both a compliment, and I don't know how you guys did it, but Victoria, to take a playwright or somebody to work with who doesn't get upset with the changes, that I'm so grateful he didn't have like this pride of authorship, or I guess sometimes it happens, right? Somebody wants to change the words.
It can be. I've worked with many playwrights, both here in Tennessee, and every playwright's different. But Tom has been very open to changes and suggestions and ideas, and has been, that's why I say it's been wonderful to work with him, because even if he doesn't initially see it, his attitude is, well, let's try it and see what happens.
Okay. Let me ask you both kind of a final question or two here. And Tom, after we finish the run of this, and we'll mention again, what were the dates of the show again?
September 25th.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Oh, September 10th through the 25th.
Okay, and it's, what is it? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
We're doing Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights at 7:30, and Sundays at 4.
Oh, there will be a great Sunday matinee. And if people want to get tickets for it, how do they get tickets?
The easiest way is to go on to the magnetictheater.org on their website to purchase tickets for it. And you just need to go under shows, and it's listed, and you can get your tickets there. You're also able to go through their Facebook page to purchase tickets as well. Okay,
great. And Tom, so the question I want to ask you, and I'll ask Victoria the same question, but after we get through this run, what do we see in the future for Tom Godleski?
Well, I'm hoping to produce self-producing a show is kind of, it's a labor of love, but it's also pretty rough. It's intense. I mean, to book it, do tickets and all. But I'm hoping to do another one of my shows at the Folk Arts Center on the Parkway, out East Asheville. And I already have I have it cast. And incidentally, since Victoria and Katie suggested I have characters sing, I have gone back now and written songs. Well, I've got one partially written for two of the characters in my comedy, which is called The Crow and Hen. So I'm hoping that, of course, the band Buncombe Turnpike has a few gigs here and there. We don't have that many because COVID is still kind of looming over us. But I'm hoping, I've made inquiries at the Folk Arts Center to see if we possibly could do a show there in the spring.
Okay. Well, keep me informed, both in terms of doing another show like this, or, so I can help you get the word out. And Victoria, the same question. After this show, what are we going to be doing in our spare time?
Well, I was planning to take a break because I've directed two really huge shows back to back this year, which I've never done before. But I have a callback later this week for a show to be an actor in. So that may be my next thing.
Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you in it. And Tom, the question is, folks want to get more information not only about this show, but about your band. What's the best bet to go get information?
Buncombe Turnpike has a Facebook page, and we also have a website, buncombe-turnpike.com.
Okay, so check that out if folks want to find out more. And Victoria, if folks want to find out about the stuff you're in, aside from this show, check you out on Facebook, or is there another way to find out about you?
Follow me on Facebook. It's Victoria Lamberth on Facebook. I actually have a pretty huge following, honestly. So that's probably the easiest way to keep up with what I'm doing, especially acting wise and directing wise.
Okay, and I want to really thank you both, because I was kind of looking forward to the show just because, Victoria, you're involved in it. But now hearing about it, it really has me excited, because I thought I was going to see another of Tom's shows, and they were all good, but they were just a certain kind of format. Now I'm going to see a full-blown musical, Tom. This is really to your credit.
I couldn't be more excited about it.
Okay, well, you should be. So we look forward to seeing you in actually it'll be a couple of weeks. It'll be opening up. And thank you both for joining me. I'd like to thank folks for watching this special edition of the Blaine's World Show. We look forward to seeing you at a regular time on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. here on 103.7 FM. I'm going to say goodbye to both you guys. If you just stay with me for 1 second, we'll wrap up after the show is over. So thanks, guys. Speak to you soon.
Thank you.